what exactly the problem into the logistics space LogiNext is solving.
We are heavily building towards an automated carrier dispatch network. We build enterprise tech in a consumerized way. Basically, we have integrated a lot of regional and national B2B carriers in US and Europe. And we are the only platform which allows complete auto dispatch for B2B shipments.
How much potential and opportunities are still remaining for developing a new companies into logistics space?
In last 3 years, India has seen the highest number of private investment vehicles starting up. I feel there is still a huge appetite. Even till date, you wouldn't imagine, every quarter, a new such company gets funded.
Would have been the typical one or two reason where the technology-driven logistics company got failed.
I think technology-driven logistics companies failed was that they never had their understanding around making money. They were just building software. You can't run a logistics company like a tech company.
What's the new or the future plan for LogiNext? नमस्कार दोस्तों, लॉजिस्टिक्स शक्ति के पॉडकास्ट चैनल में एक बार फिर से आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। जैसा हमारा आपको कमिटमेंट है, प्रॉमिस है, वादा है कि हम आपको लॉजिस्टिक्स इंडस्ट्री और सप्लाई चेन फंक्शन से जुड़े हुए उन तमाम सक्सेसफुल पर्सनालिटीज़ को रूबरू कराते हैं, इंट्रोड्यूस कराते हैं, इंटरेक्ट कराते हैं उनके साथ, कि जिनकी ज़िंदगी के डिफरेंट पहलूज के थ्रू या उनकी ज़िंदगी के लर्निंग के थ्रू, उनकी स्ट्रगल्स के थ्रू हम कुछ सीख पाएं और आप कुछ सीख पाओ और उनकी लर्निंग्स को हम अपनी लाइफ में इंप्लीमेंट करके एक लार्जर सक्सेस ले पाएं। तो उसी सीरीज में आज हमारे जो मेहमान हैं वो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट हैं। इनफैक्ट लॉजिस्टिक्स शक्ति के अब तक की सीरीज में मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी जो टिपिकली ऑपरेटिंग फ्रॉम यूएस, बेस्ड आउट ऑफ यूएस, हु इज ऑल द वे पॉसिबल bring out his time from New York, and he runs this company, successful company, all the way started as a startup in year 2015 and built this organization with multiple round of investment and different kind of struggles and successfully running based out of New York and operating globally, right? And his company largely focused on technology of a last mile and solving the complexities of last mile for the logistics industry. So help me welcome Dhruvil Sanghvi, who belonged to Gujarat, operating in New York. And thank you, Dhruvil, for making this possible for a Logistics Shakti podcast and taking time out.
Thank you for having me and thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Thank you. Same here. Your introduction is still not completed. Within next 1 or 2 minutes, you can talk about your journey a little bit and kind of a funding round you have raised and what exactly the problem LogiNext is solving.
So my journey started from 2010. I was just another engineer out of India. I had not seen any other cultures other than living in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad. My exposure was very limited. I was largely a studious kid. Not even the brightest, I would say. In 2010, I had this realization that if I want to do something in my life, I want to take an unconventional subject and see how it shapes up. And as a young boy, I would say, 17-year-old, 18-year-old guy, I think I started, admiring the journey of my sister, who had gone to US to study at this university called Carnegie Mellon. Which is
there
number
is a lot
one.
Of craze in Gujarat and Punjab, and particularly for
absolutely
US.
And there's a whole movie around it, by the way, which is especially it's a Gujarati movie, which is all around the crazed Gujaratis have to go to US at any cost. And the movie has about what the hero or actor does it and how to what extent it goes to go to US. Anyways, so I was one of those guys who wanted to kind of expand, and I wanted to kind of expand my horizons around understanding other people as well, because I was very introvert, more of an engineer kind of a personality. So I thought, why don't I pursue this track? Worked really hard to study and apply towards it. Fortunately, I got the admission at Carnegie Mellon for the AI and machine learning track.
Year 2010, you're learning or studying the AI.
Correct. And in 2010, and this is one of the things that I always talk about. every engineering college in India has this one subject called artificial intelligence. So for last 25 years, so every computer engineer ever graduated from India has studied artificial intelligence in undergrad, in bachelor's degree.
Oh, I see.
And still AI feels like a new thing. So AI to me was not a new thing because I was formally educated. The difference was the world never emphasized on it. Okay. So it always looked like something that you are on the side.
And the daily usage was not there.
And something is too futuristic.
Correct.
Not commercialized yet. And even professors never used to focus on it. Students never used to focus on it. Industry never focused on it. Employers never focused on it. So it was a subject. Going on. Did it? I somehow developed some interest, took a bet. I still remember the day when I told my parents that I've gotten this admission in artificial intelligence in Carnegie Mellon University, and their response is, "Hey, what does that even mean? Kya kar rahe ho?" And I was still fortunate enough to kind of get the liberty to and took that investment from my parents to pay for the fees. Went to US. That was a very life-changing experience for me, and I'm glad that I took that bet because ever since then the world has started building commercially available technology with the use of AI. And 2011 December is when I graduated from CMU. I got my job at Deloitte. Deloitte also at that time had started doing this new research wing, which would help their customers do the research on AI and make money on it. I was one of those team members, grew the ranks very quickly over 4 years of my job at Deloitte. By 2015, the world had changed, primarily from three or four perspectives. First, hyper-local or on-demand economy had evolved. Companies like Uber had started, DoorDash had started in US. And it was not a US trend, it was a global trend. Companies like Didi in China or Zomato and Swiggy in India. And all they were startups. And the same trend like Noon in Middle East, Grab in Southeast Asia, Deliveroo in Europe, Delivery Hero in Europe, and Rappi in Latin America.
Gojek in Indonesia.
Very right?
Great success story.
And all of them were just starting up. So, so that was one trend. Second, mobility was a big thing. Until 2015, the world had not completely moved to a smartphone-based ecosystem.
Correct.
iPhone launched in 2000.
Transition phase was there.
Absolutely. So by 2015, majority of the population across the world had smartphones. With smartphones, you have not just the ability to order online, but also you have the ability for gig workforce to do their jobs on phone. Right? If you look at these drivers who are on these, on these platforms, they are ultimately floating drivers doing their job on just
on demand work.
That's all
they
you
have
need.
A freedom of their own.
That worked out really well. And obviously the cloud computing became super cheap because before 2010, starting a tech company was expensive because you had to buy and have your own infrastructure, hardware and cost, right? Yeah. Which also became very easy with AWS.
Today from anywhere you can start the office.
Absolutely. So the cost of starting business from a tech perspective, server perspective went down significantly. These three trends worked out together, and I took the bet to say that why don't we do something in India first. And in the very first 18 to 24 months of my journey, India taught me a lesson on what India really is, right? And India is not easy. So there are problems from price sensitivity to change management to and
mindset of the people.
Mindset of the people. And you really need to learn the industry from the ground. Right, especially in supply chain, logistics, warehousing. If you do not know,
रोड का काम है, रोड पे जाके होने वाला है.
सबको लगता है कि ट्रांसपोर्टेशन तो क्या होता है, ट्रक लगा दी, चालू कर दी डिलीवरी. इट्स नॉट दैट. वेयरहाउस क्या होता है, लगा दी, मैंने जगह ले ली तो वेयरहाउस बन गया. स्पेशली इन दिस डार्क किचन वर्ल्ड और क्लाउड किचन वर्ल्ड, वी ऑल पीपल थिंक कि यार ये तो आपको स्टोर लगाना है, चालू कर दो. बट देयर इज अ लॉट दैट गोज बिहाइंड इट, एंड दैट्स समथिंग आई लर्नड टू रियलाइज ओके द डेप्थ ऑफ दिस इंडस्ट्री. एंड देन आई रियलाइज दैट इफ आई हैव दिस डेप्थ, आई वुड रादर मेक मोर मनी विद इट. And we opened up our floodgates to the world in terms of signups. We fortunately got very good leads.
So the idea of starting entrepreneur journey into the logistics space, how it has been, decided in your mind or your dream?
I think so. From a starting up perspective or from the logistics perspective?
Starting, मतलब क्यों मैंने logistics में धंधा क्यों करना? गुजराती हूँ तो धंधा तो कुछ ना कुछ करना ही है फ्यूचर में.
My simple answer was हाँ, तो वो एक तो था ही कि I was always like encouraged from the family perspective. In fact, in Gujarat, rather than encouraging entrepreneurship, they discourage employment. And
हाँ,
that's how you
correct.
naturally feel that
हाँ,
entrepreneurship
वो
is the
नेगेटिव
only...
स्टिग्मा कर दिया तो उधर जाना ही है.
Like मुझे पता है मेरे चाचा, even in 12th standard when I was there, he would be like, यार जॉब करोगे, फिर क्या करोगे, फिर सैलरी मिलेगी, फिर क्या कर लोगे आगे. So even if you want to run a small business, you would want to run a business versus a job, which has pros and cons to it, by the way. I'm not a big believer in that. But that happened, and logistics was the only thing I knew. So all my customers...
because of the research you were doing?
At Deloitte, it was all coincidentally, my customer base turned out to be more in retail, e-commerce, transportation. Okay. So this small package movement, last mile movement, and of course the whole gig economy was also evolving at that time. So I kind of naturally gained more knowledge around it. That's the only thing I knew. And that's the only idea I had. So I just pursued it. And I was very young. I was 26 years old. So I did not even start the company assuming let's make it big. I just started to solve a problem.
करना है तो शुरू कर दिया.
And फिर देखते क्या होता है.
Got it. So you started in Mumbai, 2015.
Yes. I moved back from New York to Mumbai. My job was in New York. Moved to Mumbai. Mumbai is where I had a basic network. I had some cousins. I had some friends. And Mumbai was the tech ecosystem at that time in India. If you see a lot
Bangalore
of
was parallelly building up.
Right? Like Ola, OLX, Freecharge, a lot of companies were actually started from Mumbai. And then they eventually moved out. So for me, Powai was the basic thing. IIT Powai se log hire karenge thode अच्छे engineers. यहाँ पे base होते हैं. Powai is a good local, locality to also, be based out of. So I moved to Powai in 2015.
So typically, you went through the journey of transformation of Indian logistics all the way before 2010, and during 2010 to 14 or 15, the kind of a transformation was happening.
Correct.
And a lot of legacy companies trying to adopt into the potential of e-commerce, and the new age technology and the startup mindset driven companies being launched during 2011. It was maybe Rivigo, it was Blackbox, it is a Porter, it is a Delivery, Ecom Express, Go Javas, many organizations, and few of the organizations like Blue Dart and DTDC or RMX of the world, they were trying to also do the e-commerce business. So you have seen this period, and then 2015 you started a last mile delivery technology for those people. So during this period, can we have some comparative analysis and understanding the US logistic ecosystem and India logistic ecosystem for that period?
Great question. So I've seen that 2-3 cycles that India has gone through, right? So 2010 to 15 wale mein, I think there were even companies like Chotu.in,
Chotu.com,
and variety of these things, right? And several of them ultimately died in 2015. Correct. That was one cycle that happened. Yes. And that's when I think one of the key differences between a US ecosystem and Indian ecosystem was that US already had gone through that cycle with the earlier advent of e-commerce there.
.com boom. 2000.
So they had learned these lessons in 2000, the same lessons. And the lesson was number one around unit economics. Like when you try to do last mile delivery or even any on-demand delivery or any gig working, you need to have enough density of orders to deliver. It's as simple of a concept. If you don't have enough density, you'll probably never be able to make money because your cost is still going to be the same. And this is something which was an assumption that these companies started on, that as we grow, ecosystem will grow, e-commerce will grow, and there will be more demand. But that demand did not came at such a fast pace. All of them, they ended up building their infra or teams or fleet faster than they should have, and ultimately kind of died because they ran out of money, because every transaction or every fulfillment, every delivery was loss making for them. But the same thing US has gone through. At that time, US already had kind of seasoned up to these learnings. So a lot of capital was flowing into US at that time, which was matured capital into companies which already knew what not to do. And that worked out very well. Secondly, in US, Amazon Prime was already a thing at that time. Amazon Prime was launched in 2012, roughly, if I'm not wrong, which is a 2-day delivery back in the days, which is 13 years ago. 2-day delivery was a big thing.
Today is
and free, unlimited 2-day delivery across the country as much as you want, right? And for a monthly fees of, some basic fee. That was very revolutionary. And that changed the customer behavior in US significantly faster. That
So
did not happen
during
to
that
India at that time.
period, 2011-12, when Amazon Prime started, so FedEx or the UPS of the world was not doing the same thing? 2 days delivery?
Amazon Prime at that time was only fueled by FedEx and UPS and USPS. There was no Amazon Prime fleet whatsoever. Amazon Prime started doing in-house logistics, including jets, their fleet in 2017-18. Those 5 years, UPS, FedEx has made a lot of money from Amazon. But at the same time, Amazon at that time had the luxury of investing public market money while being in losses, which is also another thing, right? Like a public market being able to sustain and be okay with a large company trading at a high volume, even while making crazy losses for 5-6 years. It's just, you call it timing, or you call it, people always call, and back in the days in US, people used to call Bezos as the darling of Wall Street, because that was the first company which could sustain to show, or which was okay, which was allowed to show so much of losses for such a long period of time. And all those losses were fueled to change consumer behavior into being
So that was the
addicted to
investment
food,
going on for
which India did
changing the
not go
behavior.
through at that time. But again, if you see now, India is in quick commerce fashion. It's going through it now. Look at the public companies like Swiggy and Zomato, which are, they are now slightly profitable, sure, but if you see, they are largely still,
A lot of investment has gone
and a
through.
lot of investment has gone through to change this customer behavior from a 2-day window, which is the normal, to a 10-minute thing. And that's what their bet is, and we'll see how it.
So certain success stories was there in India, and lot of failure stories is there in logistics world. We named a few companies which is died basically by building the last mile delivery. So what would have been the typical 1 or 2 reason where the technology driven logistics company got failed badly?
I think they were just, I think first reason why technology driven logistics companies failed was that they never had their understanding around making money. Right? They were just building software. And I think, those companies are doomed to fail. Right? If you can't run a logistics company like a tech company, because your customers, they would appreciate technology, but technology is not your offering. Your offering is on time
And
delivery.
there used to be fashion. Yeah, I'm a tech company.
And if I remember in 2015, I was my first pitch to an Indian traditional logistics firm. I wouldn't name them. And I met the CEO, and the CEO said, "We are not a logistics company. We are a data company. We are a tech company." And everybody started using this language. While that is not the right language to use, because you are still in the business.
End of the day, you are providing a service. Logistical is a physical.
And what does your
आपको
customer
pick
care
करके
about?
delivery तो करना ही है.
और आपका कस्टमर तो नहीं बोलेगा ना कि आपका सॉफ्टवेयर बढ़िया है तो मैं आपके पास आया. Right? The customer will say, "You did delivery on time at a good rate." That's what they care about, and that's still true till date, right? Because that's what the
For India
fundamental is.
perspective, it will always remain true.
It will always. I think even globally, I feel this is where another angle I would say is, we often feel that these Western countries are different in terms of their thinking, but business fundamentals are the same. I think they look like a shiny object from outside, but if you work with them, even FedEx and UPS, right, while they would have invested a lot in technology, I think they look streamlined because the road infrastructure is streamlined there, right? The process orientation of ground workforce is better.
And basic purchase power is higher than the India. So that seems to be a little luxury.
Absolutely. And for these 3 reasons, it looks like shiny, but they are not necessarily technologically advanced than India. But again, I think coming back to 2015 story, I feel these companies failed because their focus, they were trying to build it as tech companies while they were not really tech companies. And even that's why if you see, they were raising money at tech multiples.
And what is your, suggestions for maybe the legacy organizations who are still looking for adopting a tech in a big way and finding the mindset hurdle of their own, maybe for their next generation, or maybe for their, typically their workforce or the team?
I think I strongly feel that legacy companies in India have a huge mindset issue, and I think they are doomed to fail. I think they will not probably be relevant in next 10 to 15 years. Legacy companies do not have the vision to see beyond 5 years, 7 years, because they are so much busy in their next 3-year plan in operations that even their own MDs and CEOs and the leadership has not been able to kind of take a step back and see how do you leapfrog to another next level. And that's why if you see all these companies, the growth rates are between 10 to 20% year on year, and they're very happy with that. They're very happy with that. Nobody's thinking how do we go to 30%, 50% growth rate? How do we create a revolutionary growth? And I'm surprised because all these companies have been doing well for decades now, right? And their next generation of leadership should be only thinking, how do I make it 5x bigger, better, 10x bigger, better? But unfortunately, they're not thinking. And I think, and that's what is kind of constantly plaguing the ecosystem, right? Because if several big players are consistently taking away focus away from doing innovative things, thinking out of the box, it reflects top down in their organization. It reflects in their vendors' behavior. It reflects in their customers' behavior. And that becomes a deadlock. And I feel, and I hope there are more companies who kind of come and do path-breaking things.
So my next question is connected with this. A lot of investment since 2010-11 to till 2000, last 15 years, 10-15 years has gone through into the logistics from a funding perspective, or a lot of investment has gone through. A lot of new companies has got built up. A lot of infrastructure and then technology is in place. Transparency and visibility has come in transactions. Do you think how much potential is still remaining for, and opportunities are still remaining for developing a new companies into logistics space in India?
That's a great question. While a lot of capital has already gone into building such new age companies, and a lot of capital has sunk into it, because a lot of fund investors have lost money because sometimes companies have even shut down. And several have not done well, still struggling, and whatnot. I feel there is still a huge appetite in private markets and private equity and even venture capital to fund more. Even till date, you wouldn't imagine, every quarter a new such company gets funded at a seed round, Series A round. It doesn't capture the limelight of media, so it stays under the radar because it's, there's a constant skepticism around, hey, we have seen that 5 years ago.
Correct.
Why are you doing it now, right? But probably the same thing will happen. But I feel that as newer age customer base evolves, which is where all this Gen Z and Gen Zs become the next payers and the next customer base these companies will have to chase, or this is the audience that the customers of logistics services will be chasing, right? So a quick commerce is now kind of focusing more on Gen Zs. E-commerce will focus more on Gen Zs. Even a lot of Gen Z will come into workforce and they would have a different expectation around how they want to do their job, right? All that will reflect in behavior. And I think that's where it's a matter of time. I'm very bullish. I feel over the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to see a couple of companies break through with the exact same thing that previous companies did. Just timing is different this time.
So within the logistics, there is multiple spaces there. There is a warehousing, there is a B2B transportation, line haul transportation. There is a B2B intra-city, within city transportation, and a lot of B2C, last mile delivery oriented organizations are there. Freight, shipping, air cargo, air freight, multiple. There's a large gamut of business opportunities are there. So which is the space within these category of the verticals where do you think highest kind of investments are available, or opportunities are available for these startups or maybe entrepreneurs?
I think first, last mile is still a big space, I feel, to be honest. Intra-city logistics is still a big broken piece, huge opportunity, very big market. Especially if you go to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, that is still, we all live in NCR, Bangalore, Bombay. We assume this is how India works, but that's not the case.
And new purchase power is evolving.
Even cities like Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Bhopal, Indore, they don't really have, Chandigarh, they don't have as strong intracity backbone as these 3-4 major metros have. That's one. Second, I also feel, what we were just talking is providing workforce for this, right? Because a big challenge all these new age companies face is again trying to reinvent the wheel around workforce. You need to find skilled labor, train them, make it professional, make it available, And that's, I think, if somebody tries to solve for that, then these logistics companies can focus on their core, which is their own customer experience and building their network and whatnot. So I think that's a big opportunity as well, to kind of build skilled workforce and being made available for that. And another third thing I feel is there are very few companies who have been able to build end-to-end network. That could be a big moat, right? Because if you see these legacy companies, they are sitting on this network since
Correct.
ages, and they're different. The only reason why they're surviving today is because they have this network.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, even the customer service is not some out of the world, tech is not out of the world, and there's no real differentiator anybody else can't do.
Correct.
And that again requires capital injection. And I strongly feel that there are smart entrepreneurs who can come and claim that investment from several private equity players. In last 3 years, by the way, there's another fact. In last 3 years, India has seen the highest number of private investment vehicles starting up. That means there are almost 5 times more number of private investors available in India than ever used to be. All that capital has to go somewhere. And I think that's an opportunity.
And logistics is a big platform to get.
Huge. And I know several of these private equity funds, new age VC funds, early stage funds, seed funds, angel networks. All of them have logistics as one key vertical they always want to invest into.
So what is your suggestions or your inputs for the people who are aspiring to be an entrepreneur in the logistics space?
Good point. First of all, I strongly believe that anybody trying to start a venture in logistics, do not get sucked into this daily operating mode of trying to cut corners and trying to cut costs and let your service and vision be impacted, right? So if you're starting, think about how can you raise initial capital faster so that you can kind of build on top of it and be good at money raising. Like raising money is also an art, right? And
science and an art both,
right? Exactly, science and art both. And anybody can ace it. Actually, most people think that raising private capital or this venture funding is some rocket science or some black box that nobody understands. But there's one answer to it. Is about being able to have a great story and excite the investor. It's not about numbers. A lot of decks are with tons of projections and economics and numbers and operating level insights. And that's boring to an investor because they don't really understand much of it, first of all. And it's not exciting because anybody can put together this deck and do it. But if you can truly excite the investor for an initial $1 million, $2 million check, that's how I raised money in my life. Like, when I raised my first round, I did not have product. I did not have any revenue. I had a presentation, some wireframing done, and some basic understanding and experience of logistics industry. But now I can kind of in hindsight can tell for myself that I was good at storytelling. I was good at creating excitement. I was able to create that excitement in investors' mind in the first few minutes. And I think most entrepreneurs don't spend enough time on sharpening that. They spend all their time on building their service, getting customers, which is obviously the most important thing to do. But capital raising becomes a side activity, and then it becomes a painful activity. And then, of course, they get a lot of
into a vicious cycle of.
Then you get a lot of rejections. When you get a lot of rejections, you feel demotivated, and you go into that vicious cycle.
Yeah, vicious cycle of managing the status quo and somehow revenue versus cost versus P&L. And then you become a survival mode.
And then you go to survival, and then there is very difficult.
And the business becomes just lifestyle business.
If you spend 3 years plus doing that, very difficult to come out of that and again have a fresh outlook. So, long story short, in your first 12 months, spend good amount of time at learning and acing the fundraising game. There is capital available out there. And if you could raise even a decent size sum to invest and hire the best talent and let them do it versus you trying to do it everything yourself with lesser money, then I think you can have that escape velocity to come out of that vicious loop and grow from there.
You yourself do a lot of investment and you have a very good portfolio of multiple startups you have invested. You given a chance in logistics industry to invest. So what piece or what vertical of logistics would like to choose, or the entrepreneur you bet upon?
I think I'm doing most of my investments outside India right now. But in India, again, we were speaking recently. I think for India, I have a big segment that I've not invested so far, but I would love to invest in. Is that being, making Indian human capital available for global markets.
Beautiful.
I strongly believe that India's moat is not manufacturing. While of course, manufacturing is important, the country will do it, has to do it. I think our moat is this young age talent, which wants to work hard, be highly skilled, and serve the world. And Indians are passionate about it already, right? So you don't have to really break through, because it's just out there, right? So you just need to generate that demand from outside. And whenever I go outside India, I realize the whole world has recognized that already. Like the whole world appreciates Indian talent now, which was not the case 5 years ago. So there's not even a mental barrier
But at
anymore.
the same time, people want, very protective. I mean, geopolitical perspective I'm talking about. They're protective for their own jobs, their own people,
It's only in, I think that's a myth.
Achha.
If you actually, this geopolitical conversations is more in media and social media. So we all see it so much and not in real world. So that's why we got conditioned to think that must be the reality. But you know what companies care about right now in the Western world, even in Middle East, APAC markets, they care about getting good quality talent at affordable rates. And for Western world, hardworking quality talent at affordable rate is non-existent right now. It just doesn't exist. Like it's only available in bulk with India. And I'm sure Indian entrepreneurs will figure this out over next decade or so. But that's one sector.
That's a big opportunity.
That's a big
in
opportunity.
the workforce side you were talking
Workforce
about.
side. Another thing I strongly believe in is, I don't know if it's the right time to talk about that, but I strongly believe in building like a bit more electrification of fleet in India. I think still our fleet are still like largely non-electric, right? Like consumer vehicles have become electric over last 4 or 5 years, and there's good penetration in that segment in 2-wheelers, 4-wheelers. But there's no logistics fleet which is electrified, and I think that's going to be a big theme. That change is not being talked about right now because government is not talking about it, media is not talking about it. There's no investments happening as much there. But I'm pretty sure in next 5 years, some movement will come where that trend will spike, and you will suddenly see a lot of companies flocking into it. And as an entrepreneur, the biggest risk that one needs to take is to see that vision.
Absolutely.
You can't be too much ahead of the time, but you can't even be in the time. You have to be slightly ahead of the time.
Yeah, that is the right time.
That's the right time to capitalize on that. So I feel that could be a big one. What I don't buy into is, I discourage people from starting drone companies in India from logistics perspective.
Mhm.
Drone has other applications, sure. But driverless vehicles, drones, I think this is way too ahead of the game. This is fancy. I think it's going to happen at some point, but I don't see it happening in even like by 2040.
So my next question could be, is there for you. B2C and B2B. B2C, a lot of technology adaptation has happened. B2B also, a lot of success stories are there, like Black Bucks, and the failure story is also there, like Rivigo kind of, who have been ahead of their own time. How do you differentiate, and what are the real difference in technology adaptation in B2C, logistics perspective, last mile, and line haul, transportation, where the 70-80% market is still largely unorganized and TAM is too big?
Absolutely. Fully agree, by the way, on the TAM piece. Intercity TAM is much higher than the intracity one. I think the biggest difference is that in B2C, your consumers are driving the expectations, and the end customer has become very tech savvy, even including us, right? Most of my own workforce, I myself, right? We are all much more tech savvy in our personal life than in our professional life, right? And I don't know why that happens, but that's how we all are. So if you could really consumerize enterprise technology, as we call it, right? So at LogiNext also, that's what we try to do. We build enterprise tech in a consumerized way. Most of the enterprise technology is very boring, ugly, clunky, complex, slow, right? And complicated. And that's why it doesn't give that beautiful of an experience to a user. I think in B2B side, on intercity side, if you could truly create a very consumer grade technology, which everybody can use and admire and quickly get onto that. That would be a very interesting thing to do. Why it's difficult to do is because on B2B side, there's a lot of complex workflows, corner cases, right? A consumer side and retail experience is always simple. It's pointed, simple, easy to build from a tech perspective. And intercity or a B2B piece will be a bit more complex. And when you try to build complex technology, you also make UX very complex, implementation is very complex. With that, you make it expensive also. And that's what we, at least at LogiNext, have tried to do. And that's what my thesis generally is, that if anybody can try to create that B2C flavor in B2B, they can capture that market much, much faster.
Got it. So this is a very interesting thing you talk about. In a professional life, we are not so tech savvy, and a personal life, we are very highly tech savvy. So B2C get adaptation faster, driven by consumer, whereas the enterprise are not so pushing hard. And then the remaining side of line haul, transportation, trucking, where is the breaking or maybe the gap you see in terms of the technology?
I think it's largely, if you see B2B tech is so broken, right? I mean, I see gaps in, like, take a traditional warehouse management system, right? It will be very difficult to use, difficult to configure. Your warehouse workforce will have to be forced to use it. Same, take it a TMS, same story. And again, I'm saying from a tech perspective because that's my expertise. Take it the driver experience, right? For B2B, for intercity trucking. Like most companies try to give the same last mile driver apps to long haul drivers. It's a whole different ball game, right? Like in last mile, the driver can keep using the app again and again. In a long haul transportation, the driver is not going to look at app all the time, right? तो गाड़ी चला रहा है. तो ये सब सोचा ही नहीं है किसी ने. Second is also very expensive. I feel B2B transportation long haul has also lower margins.
Very, very thin margins.
Very thin margins. So you need to really, and especially for India, you need to take a different angle. All these consumer apps and so much of tech adoption in India has happened because it's super low cost or free. Imagine if YouTube was charged, Facebook was charged, UPI was charged.
You would have not taken it.
Nothing would have happened. So one underlying thing of this being free is being missed. In B2B, we want to charge a lot. Have a different business model, where entry barrier from a price point of view has to be super low. And user experience friction has to be very, very low. So if a long haul driver is your user, keep that person in perspective and build around it, right? Don't experiment somewhere else and force the technology somewhere else. So I think there are the kind of couple of things if new businesses take care of. We also tried to, by the way, do it ourselves at LogiNext long ago in 2015-16, and we couldn't do it because we ran out of patience. So all these things requires patient development, and that again, hence the investment and consistency and focus. Then you can build for it.
So you got, you started in India, US to India, and then you got pushed back or because of many other reasons, and then you again started focusing and successfully building in US only. So what are those typical learnings you had during your India operations while going for a sales call or maybe trying to convince the clients?
I think India, I've seen one thing in India which is very, very weird, still exists. People would want to procure something, anything, be it software or anything, for cheaper than whatever you are offering it as. So even if you go to with a reasonable price point, there's a satisfaction one needs to have. Negotiate करके satisfaction तो मिलना ही चाहिए. And सामने वाले को squeeze करके जो मजा आता है वो एक होना ही चाहिए. We're all like that. I don't want to be in an India bashing mode right now generally, but ये एक mindset है. और उसकी वजह से pricing इतना ज़्यादा suppress हो जाता है, right? That
quality providing the quality become difficult.
वाले का motivation चला गया या वो quality impact होगी. In our case motivation चला गया, so we were like चलो यार यहाँ पे तो पैसा नहीं बन रहा है तो बाहर जाते हैं. But it was the biggest struggle. Like even when we were priced affordably, but it was still suppressed. So I think one thing that I've noticed is that maybe in India angle, maybe you change your business model to something else. Even like, because even if आप 10 रुपए भी charge करोगे ना, like for example, our pricing in India was as low as 2 rupees per order. उस पे भी negotiate होता है, right? When the AOV of the logistics cost of delivering that order is 1,000 rupees. So you are basically demanding 0.2% of your
The
cost.
ticket size.
Now 0.2%
Yeah,
is nothing,
nothing.
right? So आप तो उसका अगर आपको वो भी believe नहीं हो रही है, तो आपको टेक्नोलॉजी में बिलीव नहीं है फिर, right? Then don't claim that टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करना है. तो वो 0.2 को भी मतलब we were just kind of wasting time on pushing it, because there are procurement teams who are used to doing it. Even if let's say one person in the company is visionary or wants to invest in technology, the org is not designed around it.
Correct. The whole culture is not supporting it.
तो आपको वैसे भी फिनेंस से क्रॉस करना है, प्रोक्योरमेंट से जाना है, तो वहाँ पे सब लोगों का विजन अलाइन होना on pricing and on this, it's very, very difficult. So I think that was our biggest learning and reason why we left India and moved outside.
Got it. So what's the new or the future plan for LogiNext as far as last mile or maybe a different technology and innovations?
We are heavily building towards an automated carrier dispatch network. Now what that basically is, and I'm using this buzzword because the audience is experts here. Basically, we have integrated a lot of regional and national B2B carriers in US and Europe. And we are the only platform which allows complete auto dispatch for B2B shipments. So just like, let's say, in India, Unicommerce, right? As an example, right? Like, so, or a ship rocket, right? तो आप जब यहाँ से शिप करते हो, तो it is injecting automatically into carriers, right? And these are B2C carriers. And you don't have to really worry about it. It's very seamless experience. तो आपने shipping का वो automatic cost optimize करेगा, trends देखेगा, and customer experience भी create करेगा. In B2B, this is broken globally. We are doing the same thing. We have built, and unlike B2C, where B2C has major 5-10 players which will cover pretty much the whole country for you. You don't need to have 50 carriers to cover country. In B2B, you need to have as many as you want, right? And then because sometimes some local carriers somewhere in some part of the country may give you great pricing, which others can't. And
there are a lot of companies who are regionally
dominating, locally dominant also. Yeah. So we have kind of created the network. We think we are still 20-30% done. 70% of the work is still left, but we are way ahead in the game when it comes to that. And we are able to offer a fully automated dispatch experience for a B2B logistics or B2B transportation space.
So again, coming back to India?
No, this
for India, no.
No. This is like in US. So we do it in US, in Canada. We have done a bit in LATAM and largely US, Canada, and Western Europe. That's where our most part of network is, and we are going very, very deep into it because that's our moat. Or any other player cannot just come and replicate it overnight, because if you have to integrate with carriers, the carriers also have to be willing to integrate with you. They will only be willing to integrate when you can bring more business. So you can't just pump in capital or more resources to replicate what we have done, because all these 1,000 players will not really play along with you overnight. They will, and the integrations technology wise, that also takes time. So there's a lot of extra handshake and coordination work and whatnot. So we've done all that over the years, and we are at that inflection point where we are able to use this moat significantly in our favor now. And with that single focus we are working right now.
So Dhruvil, you build your organization as a solopreneur, right? So give us a little, background. What level of a funding you raised and what kind of a struggle you faced. Generally, there is a belief or, success story or data also says you're supposed to have a 2-3 founder. One is focusing on a marketing sales side, one is from the strategic and raising funds and all, and one is largely from a technology and then operations. Absolutely. Right? So how did you manage this?
So first of all, we have, I've been very lucky in terms of getting an early good team in place. Now I did not know the value of team, but I think I was generous with equity. And I offered good amount of shareholding to my early team members who stuck around for a long time. And I've seen most entrepreneurs are very protective about their equity in the beginning. Okay. When the value of equity is anyways not much, but you're trying to every single 0.1% of equity, you will negotiate a lot. My recommendation number 1 is don't do that. Okay. give out equity freely. आपको थोड़ा वो एक पिंच होगा कि यार मैंने 2% 4% ऐसे ही बांट दिया, but that fundamentally creates a culture of strong team members sticking around longer. And if you don't do that, if you have cheap talent, it will do poor quality work. They will churn very quickly, and then they will leave something called as cultural debt. And nobody talks about that.
So rather looking for a co-founders, you hired the team.
Correct.
And given them equity.
Correct. And you can also call them co-founders, right? So you can also, because and there's no need to be conservative about these titles, because if somebody really founded the company with you, might as well do that, right? तो वो किया था, and that kind of worked out in my favor. Over 10 years of my journey, I've seen that the biggest value add of co-founders, whenever I've seen elsewhere, is just giving moral support. I think the journey as a founder is very lonely. I know so many entrepreneurs. I've invested in them. So many of them are good friends. So many of them are mentors. And most of the 99% of them have told me that they have cried several times alone while building their journey, especially in the early times. So it's very lonely. You can't tell this to your family. You can't tell this to your team because you have to look strong in front of your team. Yes, of course. And that's where co-founders are very valuable. So I think if you want to have co-founders, I think don't look at only skills. Complementary skills are helpful, but skills are something you can still hire with decent equity. Yeah. If you need an equal co-founder or a founding team, kind of 3-4 people who co-founded together, moral support is going to be the biggest one. And that's why if you see most second-time entrepreneurs would always be solopreneurs, because they do not need that moral support anymore.
Through this journey and they develop this particular.
They are thick-skinned, so they don't need this anymore, and that's why they are fighting alone. And we have raised, close to $100 million over last 10 years. We've done 4 rounds of investment. We've had some marquee investors on our cap table, starting from Tiger Global, the largest largest tech hedge fund in the world. Most of our shareholders are, actually all of our shareholders are non-Indian now. Okay. Our earlier Indian angels have exited the company 5-6 years ago. They got good returns. And I think that's another thing that I suggest that, always have investors who understand that market. If you go through a pivot in the middle, try to give your old investors some exit and try to bring new investors, which I got lucky in that as well. Otherwise क्या होता है कि आपके old cap table आपका पड़ा हुआ है, old shareholders, जिनको आप अभी क्या कर रहे हो पता ही नहीं है और समझने भी नहीं आता है. So they can't add any more value, and then you will always have this hangover of giving 30% of your company to somebody who has no idea on how to help you. So like for example, we had a lot of Indian shareholders in our first year. And we gave them exits in 3rd or 4th year, because by that time we had completely become a non-India business. And they were loving it, but they had no idea on what I'm doing, what to help me, or any market connects, market insights, benchmarking, future fundraising, zero help. And you want your cap table and shareholders to be actively participating. Otherwise, you will quickly find yourself in a situation where you're a one-man show. And all other people are just kind of beneficiaries of your work, but they are not contributing to your business anymore.
So we started our discussion from, US and India comparison of the logistics industry and the logistics player. We would like to close our discussion here on the US and India, or maybe the India and the rest of the world. India could not, as of now, we could not produce, particularly logistics industry and many other industries as well, the global players, right? So whereas, top giants like FedEx or UPS or DHL and many more are there. And in shipping also, the Mercs or maybe DSB, DB Schenker, Seva Logistics, and many more. These are all from the developed world. How do you see the India is also producing or developing or creating the global players in the logistics space, and how?
I'm not a believer of India as a market. I'm a believer of Indians. When I say that, my recommendation is that Indians, if they truly want to build a global logistics company, they should start from non-India markets, and then come to India. All these players, if you see, they all started elsewhere. So you want to be in a high margin, larger market size, slightly easier to execute market. And in today's world, Indians have full potential to do it, skills to do it, exposure to do it, even capital will follow them. You must take that approach and take India with you alongside. If you make India as your primary game to begin with, you will spend years building it, and you will probably, you lose your prime, right? Because every entrepreneur, I think, has a decade or two worth of energy.
Yeah.
So you
not the whole life.
Not the whole life, you will have the same energy, right? So you use that prime energy into something which quickly helps you leapfrog, and then you build for India and take India with you, and why not?
So you want to build the global player, so Indians can do it.
Absolutely.
But they should do it outside India. And which should be that country?
I think I always say US and Europe because they are the largest in nature, but there's a lot of competition there also. I strongly believe that Middle East is the best playground right now. Because easy cultural alignment, already a huge successful Indian community there.
Yes. Very much.
Easy to travel to, not as expensive to kind of commute to. Immigration and visa wise easier.
Yeah.
So even if you want to move there, do something there, easier that way. And very fast growing market right now. Middle East in the last 3-4 years has been the fastest growing economy across the world. Right? While the whole world is struggling, only India and Middle East is doing well.
Correct.
So I would say start with that. And also as an example, if you see the CEO of FedEx is an Indian, right? So now,
of course, many companies.
So I think that's why it's a good validation that even the best of the logistics companies CEO is now Indian.
Correct.
Has worked with them for 25-30 years. So practically, him and other people have built FedEx from the ground up, right? So why can't we do it from the scratch elsewhere?
So I think we can wrap up the discussion here itself, Dhruvil. Thank you very much for taking time out for Logistics Shakti Podcast. We would like to continuously, remain in touch for fraternity of logistics industry, and there has been a lot of learning from your interaction. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for asking thought-provoking questions.
Thank you, Dhruvil.